Guten Morgen. That's Swiss German for good morning. Shortly after 4 in the morning, actually. I'm Barry Flatman, and I'm celebrating Mardi Gras Swiss style this year with the Canadysli here in Yorkville, in Toronto, at 4 a.m. On the other side of the ocean, while the rest of Europe is recovering from Mardi Gras, held a week earlier, Basel is just beginning. When the clock at St. Martin's strikes 4 a.m. on the first Monday in Lent, torches and lanterns are lit by the thousands, and fifes and drums begin to play. Painted on the lanterns are cartoons relating to political and social events of the past year. Politicians and other public figures are lampooned. It's a time when anything goes, a time for letting off steam against the government, and for making fun of society's sacred cows.
Der Zahnarzt hat mir die Bisszähne gepflegt.
In the restaurants after the morning march, street singers appear to perform their Schnitzelbanks, satirical ditties that roast international celebrities, local personalities, and institutions. Many of them have universal themes, like this one about a visit to the dentist.
Jetzt han ich schon die Zähne, aber nicht mehr Bisse.
By dawn, most people have gone to the restaurants and pubs, but small groups of fifers and drummers continue to roam the narrow streets and alleyways of Basel. These pointed hats and shingled costumes are called Bletzlibayas, and they've become almost a trademark of Basler Fasnacht. There are many variations, but the layered effect of the costume is standard, fashioned after the tiny wooden shingles used on the outside walls of some of the local houses. The alte Tante, or old aunt, leading the band is also a familiar sight, especially during the Monday afternoon parade. The masks and costumes are all intended to poke fun at somebody or something. These Weckes costumes, with the turned-up noses and wooden shoes, are traditional too, and originally were created to imitate the peasants of the Alsace. And of course, Basel is famous for its carnival drummers. Prizes are handed out for the best costumes, and the variety is endless. Even if you don't have a mask, you can still join in, at any age. In the evening, there is a monster concert where grotesquely masked cacophony bands compete to mangle popular tunes. The winners are the ones who play the worst. At 4 a.m. Toronto time, the Swiss community begins their annual Morgestraich through the streets of Yorkville. It's really a celebration of spring, but in Toronto, the hardy souls who come out to this parade have to brave the cold of a Canadian winter night. To understand why they do this, you have to go back to the 7th century, when the Irish missionaries went to Switzerland to Christianize the population. They found there a variety of cults and pagan rites relating to fertility and the changing of the seasons. They couldn't stamp them out, so eventually they had to integrate them into the church year. A performance of pagan rites was allowed for the 3 days prior to Lent, and contrasted sharply with the 40-day period of fasting and penance which began on Ash Wednesday. Despite the unusual hour, there are no complaints from the local residents. Because of Toronto's anti-noise bylaws, the Canadysli have to get a noise permit, as well as the usual parade permit. Like the huge lanterns in Basel, these ones betray the sense of humor so unexpected in the stereotype image of the Swiss. The small lanterns are powered with flashlight batteries, but the large ones are still lit with oil lamps, and each one has its own story to tell. This one ridicules the Toronto Island controversy on one side, while on the other it makes a biting statement about the heavy use of chemical fertilizers in agriculture. Farming in Ontario. So this is where it all happens at Dinkle's PWD. I'm with Mr. Boxler, and I understand you're one of the founding members of Canadysli.
That's correct.
Your parade's at an unusual time.
4 o'clock in the morning. Like the same tradition as in Switzerland. And I happened to be invited, and so I felt really if we could make it alive here, it would be fantastic. And I knew too that because of all the work which is involved, that through my company I could supply the facilities to do all the work, because to do the mask, to do the costumes and all these things, you need facilities. And at the time then, we had no money whatsoever, so we had to start from scratch.
We decided to do a new mask for the Canadysli this year. I made 6 models, small ones, and we chose this one. From this one, I made the actual size model in model clay. Out of this one, I did the first cast in cheesecloth and plaster, and from this one we made the mold in plaster. And in the first mold we laid the first layer of fiberglass in it and brushed resin over. That what you can see now is Edith is laying the first coat of fiberglass into the mold. She is coating it with resin. As the first layer was dry, we took it out of the mold. This one sticks like crazy in here. And we did a second layer on it with the same fiberglass. It was easier to do the second layer from the outside because we had more control to keep the form. After finishing the front part of the mask, we did the back head on a positive mold, the same way we did the mask in the negative mold. Here we have the finished masks. After drilling holes, we sand the rough spots off, then we put the primer coat on, and after the finishing coat, and over that a lacquer to bring the brightness of the color. Here you can see the Wackis mold. We coated it with Vaseline and put the wet paper into it and coated over with wallpaper paste. Beside the paper mache and the fiberglass mask we made 3 years ago, we made a mask out of styrofoam. That's one of these ones.
The styrofoam masks prove to be the most popular. Each mask is unique and with its own special personality. But although impressive, the masks are very hard to see out of, and the I.A.T.S.E seem to get a bit tangled up in the situation. The Canadysli Executive Committee is organized without a president, and the 7 members rotate the role of spokesman or representative. There's the Seckelmeister, or treasurer, the Stubermeister, who is responsible for the meeting place, one who's in charge of the fifes and drums, one for the Guckelmusik, one for the workshop, and one for organization and publicity.
Okay, what we're going to do now is practice the marching music for the parade on Saturday afternoon. So it's called rum sa sa, rum sa sa, rum sa, rum sa, rum sa sa. That's just done by the rhythm instruments for now. Okay, let's go. Guckelmusik. 2, 3. Excuse me, we'll have the big drum, the first rum, that's the small instruments. Okay, let's do it right this time, eh? Guckelmusik, 2, 3.
Guckelmusik actually means chicken music. The musicians really do know how to play their instruments, but they practice how not to.
The next thing we're going to practice is Beautiful Sunday. Guckelmusik, 2, 3.
music got its start as part of Lucerne's carnival in the late 1800s, when a French army band that had deserted there played so badly, the local people put together a formation to imitate them. The idea caught on and soon spread to other parts of the country. Today, the Canadysli music is part of a show that is put on in Dinkels after the parade, and they're the star attraction at the Swiss Pavilion at Caravan, Toronto's annual heritage festival. They play every kind of instrument imaginable, even plumbing. So can you tell us how it all began here in Canada?
At that time, I just flew back from Switzerland from a trip to an annual meeting with my company, and the then Consul General was also a man from Basel. He phoned me, he said, "Henry, by the way, on Monday there's Carnival. What are we going to do?" And I said, "Of course we have Carnival." And he said, "All right, then let's do it." And I said, "How many people are you bringing?" He said, 4. Then I called him back later on. I thought, "You must be joking." I mean, then he said, "Weren't you serious?" And that's how it started in my apartment.
So you had your first parade in '77. So you went after the
year
licenses?
After, that's right, the year after, and
it began by whistling, I understand. Is that correct?
That's right.
So there are 2 permits involved. There was a parade permit and a noise permit.
Now, the noise permit was totally out in the beginning, and then later on they agreed and said subdued noise, fine, and what you heard today must be subdued noise.
It worked. This is Jeannie, and this is your second year with Canadysli, is that right?
Yes, it is.
How did you get involved with this?
Well, the first year I suddenly wanted to go because my dad mentioned it, and then we weren't sure I was going to get a costume, and we did, just by it's a miracle. And then this year, Rosemary, she made my costume, and then I got to wear my costume this year.
What do you like best about the parade?
Well, that you can wave to people and throw candies and be in a costume and be in the parade.
You going to plan to do this for more years now?
Yeah. If I can get a costume when this gets too small.
As soon as Christmas is over, volunteers start working on the masks and costumes. Most of the members make their own once the design has been decided on. But a few dedicated sewers are often found working feverishly into the wee hours of the night before.
Okay. Let's try that on.
You're not Swiss, are you?
No, I'm not.
And your parents are not Swiss?
No.
Ah. This is Martin Schragenberger, and I understand you're responsible for the name Canadysli. Can you tell us about that?
One night I came up with the idea to use the word Canada in the name, and then the Diesli is kind of just an ending that doesn't mean anything, but sounds slightly funny, and I think that's what Carnival should be all about.
Can you tell me about the origins of Carnival?
The origin of Carnival go far back in the pre-Roman period, when the local population was indulging in fertility rites. They were supposed to chase away the evil spirits which are associated with winter and get ready for the new growing season. So towards the end of winter they put on frightening masks and costumes and paraded through the villages and fields with noisemakers.
Is Carnival celebrated all over Switzerland?
No, it's not really celebrated all over Switzerland. It's mainly in the Catholic parts of the country. Basel is an exception in that Carnival has been reintroduced after it had been prohibited by the Reformation, by the Church. But Carnival is a general European thing that has, in different parts of Europe, different local forms. And the Carnival is now a tradition mainly in Catholic parts of Europe and not a tradition in Protestant parts. So Basel is probably the only Protestant city in the world that has a significant carnival tradition. The fifes and drums are a typical form of Basel Carnival too, because of Basel's long military tradition. For about 500 years, Switzerland supplied mercenaries to all of Europe. The guilds mustered the recruits, and at about 4 o'clock in the morning on the first Monday in Lent, they had this big military inspection. That's why our carnival starts so early as well. The military fife and drums mixed with the old carnival tradition, and we base our Canadian event on exactly the same thing.
On Saturday afternoon, the Canadysli puts on another parade for the benefit of the kids and the general public. They warm up on Cumberland Street and get ready to try to scare away Old Man Winter. Winding through the streets of Yorkville, making more noise than music, they once again end up at Dinkle's for yet another party. This year's costume represents an ugly old farmer woman, complete with moles on her nose and hairs on her chin. Most of the spectators just can't believe their eyes or their ears. After all, they just came out for a shopping trip. But the Canadysli hand out pamphlets a bit ahead of the parade to tell them what it's all about. The Canadian solution to a new constitution? For most people, the religious significance of all the noise and excitement has long been forgotten, and to some, it looks like Halloween. All I know is if I were Old Man Winter and saw that coming down the street at me, I'd get out of the way fast. But like winter carnivals all over Canada, the main reason for this one is simply to chase away the February blahs.
It would be so nice if through happenings like yours, the Swiss Canadysli, we could pay more attention for the local people, not only the tourists, to sort of get this feeling that in their city there's this darling area which not only provides them with buildings like this, which should remind them of history, but the goings-on, like yours, there should be many more of them.
The sense of tradition.
Absolutely.
And what has the response been from the people of the village of Yorkville to Canadysli?
We think it's wonderful. We hope that much more than that will happen.
Are you finding more and more people who are not necessarily Swiss getting involved in Canadysli?
Yeah, you see, in the beginning, we kept the Canadysli strictly German, in our German language, Baseldeutsch, so-called. And because of so much interest in the whole idea of Canadysli from Canadian people, and the Swiss who are married to Canadians and you know, things like that, we decided to, even in the Canadysli, we have to speak English now.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Canadysli Morgestraich. Through the fact that you got up so early this morning, you have proven crazy enough to be part of our terrific game.
Ah, back in the warmth of Dinkle's and some recognizable music. Hi, I'm here with the Consul General of Switzerland, Mr. Stouffer, and to his left we have the Consul of Switzerland, Mr. Burgunder. How many Swiss people are in Ontario?
Well, in Ontario we have about almost 7,000 Swiss.
And in Toronto?
In Toronto, depending on how far you go, I would say 4,500.
How are you enjoying yourself, gentlemen?
Well, very. It's marvelous. Coming from Lucerne and having a wife from Basel, I feel